Welcome back to Losing Stress and Living with Hope. I'm Dr. Terry Gibson, and I'm delighted to have this opportunity to share what I have learned, what I've researched from a faith-based perspective so that you can lose the stress in your life and live with hope, the joy and satisfaction that comes that life is okay. So this is part 4. Pie for all, positive inspiration, encouragement. And I hope that by the time we finish today, you are inspired and that you have some positive inspiration that gives you courage to take some steps. And that if you've been watching now over these last 3 segments, I hope that you've made some changes and are feeling the effects of that, because there's a God that loves you and He wants you to be happy and enjoy life. But let's carry on. Let's pray. Father in heaven, we just thank you for your goodness. We're thankful for all that you do for us, for the words of inspiration, for a chance to be part of this seminar. Speak to us today. Touch our hearts. Give us peace. Give us courage to act. In Jesus' name, amen. So let's get started today. One thing I do want to say, again, this is educational purposes only, so please make sure you follow your healthcare provider's instructions. And if you have serious stress going on, please seek professional help and get that taken care of. But do remember these things that we're talking about, so that there are things that you can take that help address stress, but also help prevent stress in the long term. We're going to look about things that we can do on a daily basis in several aspects of our life, and in some respects it all kind of blends together. But we are touching on the social, emotional, the mental, the spiritual aspects of life, and in that order. But first last time, a couple of times ago, we talked about reframing. So I want to share this, a personal incident that happened. I moved down here in 2015, and in August, I don't think we'd even been here 3 weeks. I was traveling through Burleson, and I'm just driving along, kind of going slow, going through an intersection, and boom. And I go, what? And I looked in my rearview mirror, and a pickup had just rammed me. And not only that, boom, it happened again, a second time. And by then, the glass in the back of my van, this is my van, shattered, and I'm really shook up, and I go, oh, no, you don't. And I grab my paper and I grab my pen, and as that pickup drove by, I wrote down the license plate. And I had to be right out in front of the police station. I called them and said, this guy, he just rammed me, so they came along, and thankfully I was safe off to the side, and I could drive around and park my car. I called my husband and son, and they were off in Arlington somewhere, but they said that they would come. And it's kind of a shook up kind of feeling. My car. And so then what's going to happen? Well, a couple of things happened. One is that they totaled my car, which actually I was thankful for. So my husband accuses me that when I want a new car, I have a car accident. Well, it's not really true, but it has happened twice. But anyway, so my car's unusable. Thankfully, they totaled it. I'm going to get some money for it, and we can go from there. I'm safe. I was traveling slow enough that I had no injuries that I had to be seen for, checked on. But I had to think about it. So, okay, God, why did this happen? I could be that, or I could be upset, but it didn't do any good to be upset. I just had to work through the insurance processes, decide what to do about a car. And on the other hand, I thought about, okay, God, why does this happen? Well, maybe I no longer need this van because I'm not going to be doing this childhood obesity program where I was and hauling. My car was often full weekly as I would go to different parts of the town helping children and families learn how to eat healthy and be happy. So maybe I'm not going to do that, so that's okay. We actually, by then our son was in college and he had his own vehicle, and we had a pickup, and my husband likes to drive pickups. So do I need my car? And it just made it possible. We actually had enough cars, and it took care of a car. And so reframing. I could take this event and I could be upset and stressed, and yeah, I had a little, kind of get over that initial response to stress, but then I say, okay, God, if it's your car, I gave it to you, if that's what you want, then just work me through it and we'll go from there. And I think that mental adjustment in my mind definitely makes it less stressful and definitely reduces my body's response to that, to moving forward. I think about Romans 12:2. It says, "Be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Kind of keep that close as we go through today, because it really does start up here. I can't decide that God's got it under control and I'm okay unless I have that relationship with Him, and I'm learning that He says to trust and I'll take care of it. So it takes a while, and I would ask, so what do you focus on? In those quiet times, where does your mind go? What has been the input that you've been dealing with? How is that reflected in what hits your thoughts? I always enjoy it when I've been in church on a weekend and go home and then I hear that song that's kind of going through my head. That was way better than I remember a long time ago when I was working in the hospital and a patient had on a movie that was not so nice, and I remember this person doing what they did, and that image, I can still recall that in my mind today, and that was scary. Maybe you have suffered from dreams about those scary movies that you've been watching. Or maybe you've been one that reads a passage in the Bible before you go to bed, and that's going through your mind. If we put food in our refrigerator, that's what we'll eat. So if we put good food in our refrigerator, we'll be eating good things. On the other hand, if we go through the junk food shelves and line those covers, when we're hungry, what are we going to go for? The things that are available. So life is like that. What we put into our brain is what we're going to get out in our response. And so we want to think about, and that's where we have our choice. What will we choose to do with what's around us? What can we control? So let's start with a basic framework today. I think it's a good one that's been promoted in other books I've read. It's been taking place in Washington State. And it's for mentally healthy, but I think it's a good response, and I find it aligns with biblical principles. First, they want to say act, and they suggest that you keep alert and be engaged by keeping mentally, physically, socially, and spiritually well. We talked about that more in depth in part 3, but that's something to think about. What can we do on a regular basis that we can act and be in charge of that? Belong. Develop a strong sense of identity and belonging with family relationships, friendships, joining groups, participating in community activities, even church activities. When you have a sense of belonging, it makes a difference. And I'm really interested in all the literature that is out today about relationship building and connectedness. We need that, and that makes a difference. There's recent studies about the elderly and how lonely they are. And you can even be lonely in the midst of being with a group of people, but how that is influencing their health and their quality of life. So definitely belonging. But we know that old adage, to be a friend, you must be a friend. It does take effort. And I know sometimes when you're stressed or not feeling good or depressed, who wants to be around people? But when you nurture those relationships, things happen and it makes a difference. Commit. Do things that provide meaning and purpose in life, such as taking up challenges, supporting causes, and helping others. Now in part 5, we're going to spend some time on values and what's important to us. So I won't give too much away now, but let's think about what is it that I can do in my life that gives value? How can I help others and reach out to them? And some of you say, well, wait a minute, I've got all this other stuff I have to do. But I would ask, I would remind you of Matthew 6:33. God says to seek His kingdom first, and all the rest of that will come along. So I encourage you to think about that, because acting, belonging, committing to causes and to people and to life can make a difference in your stresses. And that's what we want to do. We want to lose stress, and we want to live with hope and give other people hope in the process. So overall, this whole act, belong, commit is about encouraging you to be active and be involved in your community. And they found that it'd be very effective. Studies that they've done since that have shown that that's a good thing, and that's what we want. So let's think about mental well-being. Starting with, we've already talked about other stressors in life and determining, can I control, can I not control it? But I would ask, are you focusing on those problems? Have you stayed back in that identification spot? Because if you focus on those problems, this is it, or this person, or this thing, doesn't it kind of grow in your mind and suddenly it's overwhelming every part? We need to take our eyes off it and focus on where we're going and where we want to be. Focus on what we can control. Focus on those inputs that are going to give us the key. Focus on the God that cares about all that and that will lead us on to where we can go. Recognize that you don't have to be the victim. You can be a victor. You don't have to be a reactor. You can be the actor. You don't have to be sad. You can be happy. Really, even in sad times, you can still be happy. I think of Viktor Frankl. Much is written about the Auschwitz survivor, that he figured out that the Nazis could take away everything about him, but they could not take away what he was thinking and what he chose to do. So he hung on to that. We can think about, oh, I have to go do this. Or guess what? I get to. I want to. We can be the optimist with the glass half empty, or we can be the, did I say pessimist? Pessimist with the glass half empty, or the optimist with the glass half full. How do you choose to see life? Do you choose to believe that there's a God that cares about you and wants life to be good and that things are happening? Or do you like, oh, woe is me, I can't do this. Please, somebody help me. This is how am I going to survive? The nice thing is that you do get to choose, and that's the benefit. And you don't have to do it alone. I think of, while we're on this topic of our mental health, how many of you have that inner critic in your mind? I was recently reading an article about Pizzuto, and she suggests that we have this critic who's a bully in our mind, beats us up inside, makes us think any number of things, and this prevents us from moving forward. I can't, you're not good enough, you don't look good, you don't have those abilities, any of this kind of deal. And it slows us down and stops us. So I encourage you to turn off that inner critic and think about the things that you can do. And if you need places to go, you can go to God who says, I love you, I died for you. That's how much I care for you. If you have to, you can go back and read those cards that you received thanking you. Maybe you have good work evaluations. You can read books that challenge you to, yes, you can. This is possible. You have strengths. You can focus on your strengths. There's strength finders. There's other kinds of values, things, assessments that if you don't know, you might want to go do an assessment or just sit and think, what are my strengths? What can I do? What do I do well? Ask someone that loves you. Why do you appreciate me? What is it that I'm doing? So thinking about things that, yes, I can. And it's not about, oh, look at me, I've got it made. No. It's about knowing that you're loved and cared for. And it's okay to make mistakes, but you don't have to do this alone. You belong to this group or those people, and you can lean on them and help them. Of course, we know about Philippians 4:7, where it talks about think on the things that appear and kind and lovely. Be around those things is what I would say also. So counter negativity with positivity. That's much easier when you place those things in your sphere that you're putting it in. Does that make sense for mental health? There's so much about mental health that we could cover and go on and on and on, but I'm trying to find some way that kind of brings it together and in a package that we can do something with. So let's go on to talk about social emotional. One of the big books that I always like to think about, and maybe this isn't a problem for you, but Forgive to Live. There are plenty of people that somebody's done them wrong and they've carried that forward. But you don't have to do that. You can let that go. And just because we ask you to let it go doesn't mean we're saying that what they did was okay. No, there's terrible things. People have suffered many things. But when you carry that burden with you and it influences everything you do, that person that had that power over you continues to live in your life and influence you. And do you want that? Tibbet suggests that the process of the forgiveness really is the process of reframing your anger and hurt from the past with the goal of recovering one's peace in the present and revitalizing one's purpose and hopes for the future. Forgiving can change your life. Too many nurture anger and allow it to grow and consume their lives, and the offender continues power. So how do you switch that around? One, you can prepare to forgive. You can think about what God has done, and you can think about stories of forgiveness. I know I've read several recently about something that happened to that person, and they said, okay, but I choose to continue on. And no, I don't like what happened. Some have some very severe consequences from that. But there's healing in that, and they are able to go on. And that incident, that person no longer controls what they do. You can, when you carry that burden, whatever, it not only weighs you down, but it has you living in the past. And some of us make big deals of those stories. But when you forgive, you now can live in the future and think about what's before you. There's a book that I've recently been reading by Barry Black, the chaplain in the Senate, and he has a whole bunch that he says about adversity. And some of the things that he suggests is that we can be passionate about change. I like the idea that we can ask God for favor in Jeremiah 29:13. It's okay to, okay, God, please, I need you. And you never know when what's happened to you might open doors of opportunity in the future. Are you open to that, or are you kind of locked into what's been going wrong? And also he suggests you expect opposition. We know that life is not perfect here. Maybe one of these days will be some place where life is perfect, but things are going to happen. So if you expect it, and you have the idea that you can be optimistic, Romans 8:28, all things work together for good. I know sometimes it's really hard to find the good in that, and maybe we're not going to know all at once. But again, that attitude shift of what will happen, can something good come from this? And he also suggests that we make loving God a priority. Oh, do I make loving God a priority? That we work on that relationship. When you, I don't know if you're married or if you have children, what does it take to keep those relationships healthy? You spend time together and you get to know each other, and that influences your relationship. Avoid stressful situations, negative people. Connect with people. We have the injunction, Isaiah 58. It says, God asks us to go out and take care of those who need our help. He doesn't ask to do it beyond what you can, but to extend help where possible. And then your healing will come. And it's interesting that evidence today suggests that. I know someone that suggests that they were seeing somebody for help, and that had been going on. But when they came in and said, well, I think I have a story that maybe this would help somebody, that actually finished their time there. And because they were now focused outward, focused on someone in front of them and helping them, they were actually going to really be working on their healing. Is that making sense? That you want to forgive, you want to control the environment around you. Maybe you have somebody that's been negative, and can you shorten your time with them or avoid them? Maybe you have some things, the negative in the TV news. Can we shut that off? Maybe you have books that aren't so helpful. Can you shut those aside and find things that are helpful? Maybe you're a person that's an internet person and you spend hours doing stuff. Well, can we change that and influence what we're doing? Isaiah 58, your healing will come when you focus outward and focus on others. I hope that makes sense for emotional, social kinds of healing. So our last one, let's think about spiritual well-being. The God-person relationship, the gratitude piece, being thankful. We touched on that back in part 2 just a bit. There's lots of course, they call it positive psychology. Of course, the Bible started with that, being thankful. In all things, give thanks. Boy, sometimes that's really hard. But we can do it, and it can make a difference. I remember one time in Yakima, a long time ago, life was really stressful, and I was like, okay, God, I can't, really? So I grabbed my study Bible at the time, and I had a backpack, and there was a place that we walked, and so I climbed up and I walked, and I said, God, really, if you care, please help me. And I had never spent any time in Zephaniah before. And when I look at Zephaniah 3:17 is what he gave me that day. And it says that he rejoices over me with singing. I had a favorite babysitter when I was young, and that favorite babysitter was the one that at bedtime we had this nice leather rocking chair. She said, "Come on over, let's come on over." So I would sit in her lap, and she would get a book, and she would read. And I think she probably even sang to me. And then I would settle down and I would go to sleep. And she was my favorite, Tina, my favorite babysitter. When God shared with me Zephaniah 3:17, it was essentially like he sat down on the big rocker and he said, come to me. I rejoice over you. You're okay. I sing over you. You are safe. And that was a new revelation to me, that God could be that personal and care that much. And in turn, that made me want to work on that relation and get help. In part 2, I shared with you a whole list of scriptures, and those are what was important to me. Maybe, hopefully you have your own relationship and have been able to develop that as well. But if you haven't, I encourage you to, that may be one of the things that you can try, that you can recognize that loving God, making loving God a priority can make a difference and can influence your losing stress. We've talked about acting, taking action. We've talked about belonging to a group of people only in small parts. And it may take, maybe you don't belong with a group now, and so maybe you need to look around and see, well, who can I? Who's close? In this time of distance, where it's real easy to go online and watch something. And as we start coming back in the future, maybe it's worth getting together with people, inviting people to our homes, or having groups that we can have connectedness with people. And certainly, are there things that we can either give to or give of our time? People that help others make a difference. Next time, we have, we're going to look at the high values. We mentioned that. But before we do that, do you mind if I share an illustration with you? I think it will make sense a little more in terms of kind of putting together all that we've talked about at this point. So I hope that you can see what I have here. I have this tray, and I'm going to call this my life. Well, a 24-hour day. Maybe it's your day. And whether or not it looks full, it is full because it's full of air, right? And so you have this day, and it's already full. What activities do you do during the day? You've got to sleep, you've got to eat. Some of us work, some go to school. Kids need to play. Things like that. And then if we think about this as those things that maybe they're time wasters or they're not so important that some of us find us doing, I don't know what that is for you. I know when I talk to my students, sometimes I say Netflix and they're, yeah, okay. Maybe it's, maybe you like to surf the internet, and dare I say Facebook? Maybe it's those books you like, or maybe what other kinds of activities do you do that you would say really you didn't need to do? Oh, maybe you sleep in. Oh, but wait a minute. Maybe I should have some devotional life. Maybe I should spend time with my family. So, okay, let's do that. Let me get some, and so there's some devotional time, and there is time with family. Maybe I'll make that meal time really helpful. And I think this is going to, and pretty soon you keep pouring all this stuff in, and you can't fit everything in your life in because you filled it up with things that don't matter. But let's see if we can, let's try this once more. We have, oh, I'm making a mess. Whoop. Oh, okay, well. So, but maybe we have devotional time and maybe we take that walk with our spouse, play with the grandkids. Maybe there's some good books we wanted to read. Oh yeah, and there's that test that I need to take. So I'll work on studying for the test, writing that letter to that person that cares. Or maybe my neighbor needs some muffins or something to help them. And when you put those things in first, then often you'll have time for the other things in life. So think about your priorities and what's important, and do the first things first. And then you have room for other things. Think about the positive that needs to come in, and positive will come back out. Let me leave you with, we have our prayer of serenity, remember? God, can you say it with me now, by now? Are we at this long enough? God, give us the grace to accept with serenity the things that we cannot change, courage to change the things which should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish one from the other. Because in that, we can leave it with God, we can make those decisions, and we can change up. I also like this, this thought, morning, noon, and night, let gratitude as a sweet perfume ascend to the heavens. And I have one more I want to say. A man at peace with God and his fellow men cannot be made miserable, dare I say stressful. Envy will not be in his heart. Evil surmising, evil speaking, impatience, prejudice, selfishness, covetousness, and vanity must be uprooted. If these evil things are allowed to remain inside, they'll bear fruit, which will run many into trouble. Only love that flows from the heart of Christ can heal. Only he in whom that love flows, even as the tree or the sap in the tree or blood in the body, can restore the wounded soul. Love agencies have wonderful powers, for they are divine. Are you wounded? Are you stressful? Is life not fun anymore? I hope that you are understanding that there's people who care. There's a God who cares. We care. People around you care. Know that and spend time on that. Dwell on that. Maybe journal that. One way to get rid of problems is to, again, identify them, write them out. Maybe if you have to write them out and then burn it. Or on the other hand, let's write out those blessings we have every day and see what other blessings will come your way. Signing off for part 4. I look forward, hope you will join me next time for part 5 and the conclusion of losing stress and living with hope. Thank you.